as soon as I announced on Facebook that I was quitting my job, I had about 5 anesthesiologists in just different groups reach out and be like, hey, if you want to come work shifts here. So that definitely made me feel a lot better. Is that, the worst case scenario is that I go work full-time 1099 and probably make more money than a W-2 employee.
There is a new American dream. One that doesn't involve working till you're 65 before you start enjoying life. If you're someone looking for ways to regain control over your time and check off that bucket list now, you're in the right place. We share tips from experts on investing, personal finance, and mindset so that you can finally have the freedom to work less and live more. This is the Freedom Investing Podcast with your host, Kris Toribio.
What's going on, everyone? This is Kris Toribio with the Freedom Investing Podcast, and I am so happy you're here to join us for another amazing episode. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the show. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with our latest episodes. Moving on to today's guest, we have Ryan Johnson. Ryan began investing in real estate in 2017. His experience includes land acquisitions, fix and flip projects, and small multifamily development. In 2020, he shifted his focus to acquiring and operating commercial multifamily assets. Ryan holds an MS in Anesthesiology and is a practicing nurse anesthetist in Houston, Texas. Ryan leads the investor relations team at GenWealth Capital Group and also oversees construction management. He is invested in 138 units as a general partner and 228 units as a limited partner. He also has 6 units in the development pipeline for his personal portfolio. Ryan, what's up, brother? Welcome to the show. Before we dive into it, give us a quick 2-minute rundown of who you are, what your background is, and where you are currently in your journey to achieving time freedom.
Kris, man, thanks for having me. It's exciting to see you grow with this podcast, and I think it's going to be received well by your listeners. Yeah, so overall, I've been a certified registered nurse anesthetist for the last 14 years now, and I work in Houston, Texas. I've been working at a county hospital here for 14 years. So in the anesthesia space total, including the 3 years of training, I've been in anesthesia for 17 years total, and healthcare in general, 21 years. And that includes me being a PCA, nursing school, working as an RN here in Houston. So overall, 21 years in healthcare.
21 years in healthcare. And so now you are in the real estate space. Kind of walk us through how you got into that, from going through the rigors of formal education, from being a PCT to working as an RN, going back to anesthesia school, and now practicing as a nurse anesthetist. What drove you into getting into real estate?
About 8 years into my career, I kind of had this gut feeling that something wasn't right. I wasn't super motivated. I was looking just for things to motivate me and projects to work on that didn't necessarily include direct hands-on patient care. And so I sought out those opportunities within anesthesia. I started doing quality assurance and quality improvement projects at the hospital. I published a study in 2018 and 19, and I was the primary author. And I realized, I didn't really necessarily love doing that, but I like the project management side of it. I like, having an idea, getting a team together, recruiting, adequate, players and knowledgeable players for each role on that team, and implementing a project. And that really, it resonated with me. I liked it a lot. And I thought maybe I missed my calling. And so about 8 years into it, I started, dabbling kind of in real estate. I saw a lot of land appreciation. So I started buying just lots in gentrifying areas. And, I initially had a plan with a builder to build townhomes, and that plan fell through. But then I realized that, hey, I can just cash in on the lots. After, I think, 18 months, I started selling and, making a good profit. So in that time, I started going through my informal education. I jumped on Bigger Pockets, met people, started doing all the modules. And then I realized, this could be a pathway for me. At first, I kind of just looked at it more as not a replacement profession or not a replacement thing, but more of like a diversification thing. And then it just kind of grew on me. I really liked it. I really liked the people involved in the space. And at some point I realized hey, I can make a profession out of this. And so I just went with it.
I love it, man. And, I can definitely resonate with that. For those who don't know, I'm also a certified registered nurse anesthetist. Ryan here's a season 1 of 17 years in the industry. I am closer to 17 months in the industry. I haven't graduated in August of 2020, but can still resonate with what Ryan has been saying here. And tell us, man, were you also investing in the stock market at that time, or was it like, all right, real estate is the way to go, I'm going full in on this?
No, I mean heavily, right? I mean, I had a W-2 job. They make you put away a certain amount. I mean, they just take it. They don't really ask you. So, and they're matching so heavily. And I would say most of my net worth today is in the stock market. But around, I guess maybe 5 years, I started shifting and putting more into real estate, more into real estate, and now even more into real estate. I still think personally that I'm overweight in the stock market, and I've definitely felt, I've been bleeding over the last few months as the stock market has going down, and I'm slowly like shifting some of my assets out of the stock market and just taking the losses and into, portfolios and, products that I can have more control over that retirement funds.
Yes, absolutely. And I was just about to ask you that is, how have you felt your performance has been like kind of like within the stock market as opposed to the real estate assets that you've acquired over the past few years? And obviously we know at this point in time, we are now in May of 2022. The stock market is kind of taking a pretty big hit here, and inflation is at an all-time high. Kind of how has your portfolio kind of performed, and what realizations have you kind of made out of it so far?
Well, I would say overall, my portfolio has performed poorly. Just my mutual fund portfolio, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't really move in and out of those, out of those positions quickly or daily. My personal stock trading portfolio has done okay because you can do opportunistic buys. But I realized, full disclosure, I quit my W-2 full time on April the 1st, and so at this point I have zero income. So I did have a mindset shift, knowing that hey, I can go work 1099 anywhere, anytime I want. I have tons of opportunities, but I'm going to kind of go in at real estate full time. But I realized, in previous years, if the stock market was down and I had this high income W-2 job, okay, I'm dollar cost averaging. Yes, I'm losing here, but I'm buying every 2 weeks as I get paid at, a lower cost basis. So overall, eventually when this thing turns around, I'm going to have some upside there, right? It's not all downside. But with me not contributing to those funds anymore, I'm really just getting the downside. I'm not really getting the upside. So I realized maybe 3 months ago, probably a little bit too late in my opinion, that I need to make some moves here on that side because I'm in a different position than I was 2 months ago because I'm not buying the downs anymore. I'm just taking the beating. So it's definitely, I've had to get some consultation from others that have been through the same situation on just how, what moves they made. And, I'm seeking wisdom of people that have done that constantly.
Absolutely. Well, first off, congratulations, man, on your retirement from the anesthesia world as far as your W-2 is concerned. Walk us through that a little bit. So what was kind of your thought process, and how did you go about planning for this, if at all?
My initial plan, I guess at the first of the year, I told my boss that, hey, look, I'm going to cut down to 50%. I'm going to supplement that with 1099. I need more time to focus on the real estate efforts. And it was okay. And they were okay with it. They supported it. And then, as it kind of became closer and closer to that day, I was like, okay, what does the situation look like? What is my schedule going to look like? Can I work on these certain days and be off on these certain days? And I realized that maybe it wasn't going to be as flexible as I thought it was going to be. And so for immediately, I mean, that I didn't even think about it immediately. I said, look, you know what? I think this is maybe not going to work out for me. I'm happy to maybe come back as a contractor in the future, but I'm going to go ahead and this day is going to be my last day. And I didn't really think twice about it. I knew that was the, that I knew that was the plan. I had thought it out, and I was like, okay, if this half W-2 time is not going to work, because it's only 50% of the time, but they still control your schedule, right? They still say if you need to be
Yes.
here on Monday the 1st, you got to be there on Monday the 1st, even if maybe that day doesn't work out for you well. So knowing, Houston market, anesthesia is very, very short supply, high demand. As soon as I announced on Facebook that I was quitting my job, I had about 5 anesthesiologists and just different groups reach out to be like, hey, if you want to come work shifts here. So that definitely made me feel a lot better. Is that the worst case scenario is that I go work full time 1099 and probably make more money than a W-2 employee.
Absolutely. And for those of us listeners who aren't in the healthcare field, what is 1099 from an anesthesia standpoint, and how does that differ from a W-2 position?
1099 is I'll be an independent contractor. I can pick and choose my days and say, hey, look, I can work these 2 days a week or these X amount of days per month. This is all I can give you. If you want to take it, if not, I'll go find somewhere else. Of course, there's no benefits associated with that position. They don't do any kind of 401k matching. They don't even take taxes out. You'll run it through like an LLC or whatever entity you have set up. So it's almost kind of like you're self, it's a small business, but like you're the solo person, you're your own employee, and you eat what you kill basically.
Yes.
There's no vacation time, there's no PTO or anything like that. If you're working, you're making money. If you're not working, you're not making money. But you do have control over your schedule.
Now, when it comes to your decision to step back from W-2, did you have any sort of comfort in your investments at the time when it comes to real estate specifically, or even just as your general portfolio? Are you living off of your cash flow? I guess what's your plan when it comes to the income standpoint? I guess what was your situation if you're able to share that with us?
Yeah, so over the last couple of years, I have I guess acquired a small portfolio of personally owned assets. Many of them have appreciated quite well, and so like that was kind of my backup plan. I was like, okay, I am making cash flow from this, but a lot of people are like, oh, why would you sell this asset? It's such a great cash on cash return. But eventually, when you have that much equity in a project, you almost have to not look at cash on cash return. You have to look at like what is the return on the equity that I have locked in this asset. And so I realized that, okay, if you look at it in that way, my return is not that great. And so that kind of gave me a little bit of comfort is that if I need to start, liquidating some of this portfolio to either put that in other investments or to even live off of, I have that somewhat of a safety net that I've built for myself over the last three or 4 years that I can start doing. So that mixed with, okay, I can go work 1099 anytime I want. Plus, I have these assets that I can start liquidating if I need to. So that gave me a little bit more comfort in, reducing my cash flow quite drastically, actually.
Absolutely. You brought up a really good metric there, and that's return on equity. A lot of people purchase an asset and take a look at the cash flow projections that they're going to be getting from a certain asset. And they're like, well, my cash on cash return is this. But that can really vary depending on what type of market you're going to be investing in. Because if you're in an area that's appreciating highly, especially in your market that you're in, a lot of times you may realize that it's not the cash flow projections that's actually really the biggest metric there. It's appreciation. And
Correct.
at some point or another, you got to take a look at your portfolio, and you're like, yes, okay, well, my cash on cash return is this, but I have so much equity that's sitting just because of the way the market has been performing recently. It may be worth either selling and or refinancing so that way I can increase that velocity of money.
Correct. I kind of have a little bit of a different investing thesis because of my age. I'm 42. And so, when I'm 65, maybe, or older, then maybe I'm going to really be keying in on cash flow, right? I'm retired. I just want a ton of money out in passive deals. Maybe I don't want to be running all the deals. And so cash flow will be maybe my primary marker. But right now, as a younger person, I'm trying to build up to that level of equity out in investments. So, for instance, like some deals, like a quicker flip may be a little bit better for me than, a 7-year hold at this point in my personal investing thesis.
Yes. Yes. Let me ask you this, Ryan. When you went ahead and made that announcement on Facebook, because I specifically remember that and I was like, this is awesome. Like this guy has achieved what he's wanted to achieve. I'm sure much faster than you wanted to achieve as well. But when it comes to that announcement, did you have anybody else that is in our industry reach out to you and kind of has this curiosity, like, how did you go about doing it?
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, I had quite a bit of people reach out to me. I had quite a bit of people just kind of come off the woodworks. I think I put it on all the social media accounts, or maybe just Facebook and LinkedIn. And, I was surprised with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of the only social media accounts that you can get analytics on your personal post, right? So I put that on and, I posted blogs on LinkedIn and I posted deals on LinkedIn and I posted a lot of stuff. I mean, this thing just kind of took off and I think I had over like 25,000 views on it. So I thought it was very interesting in that LinkedIn is a network where people go to find jobs, but the post with the biggest response was me actually quitting my job.
That's pretty telling, isn't it? It's like of all these
Yeah.
things, like this new job, all this stuff that's going on, but it's like, no, I quit my job. This is the biggest activity, and this is really what's attracting a lot of people's interest. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I know it was interesting. And I think mostly people were just like, oh, okay, it was more supportive post, right? Okay, good luck, or something like that. Good luck. Happy to see your, happy to follow your journey, stuff like that. So it was very interesting. Yeah.
So for those people who may have been wondering, like, how did you go about doing that? How did you get to a position where you can quit your anesthesia position, and explore this other entrepreneurial venture that you have going on. What do you think people fail in pursuing this type of venture, or like what do you think is preventing other people from trying to take this jump?
I think probably just especially like coming from, someone from the healthcare industry, right? We train along a very long time to be able to do what we do, whether you're a physician, nurse anesthetist, nurse practitioner, you go through this very kind of precise stepping stone. You follow the yellow brick road, right? You get this degree, get this job, take this test, get this mentorship, get this, and then you apply to this school, right? And if you have this GPA, you answer these questions on the interview, you do these certain criteria, most likely you're going to get in. If you keep trying, you'll find somewhere to get in at, right? And then after you finish the CRNA school, you're almost guaranteed this very lucrative job that you can move anywhere in the country, and that's awesome. But entrepreneurship, there's a lot of unknowns there, so you have to be okay with the unknowns and just have a plan in place and be obsessed with enacting that plan, and just be obsessed with just making it happen. And so I think that that lack of like just this sure pathway probably discourages a lot of people.
Absolutely. I think you summarized that perfectly. And we talked about this, my other partner, she's a nurse practitioner, April, and we talk about like the barriers to why a lot of people that are in our industry have kind of shied away from taking these type of leaps. And you're absolutely right. When it comes to our profession, we are trained to know exactly what can go wrong before we take any sort of action. And obviously, a lot of that comes because who's going to be affected by this? It's someone else. It's someone else's health, someone else's well-being, and understandably so. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, a lot of times there's no way to predict every single possible thing that can go wrong. And if you get stuck in that period of analysis paralysis, then you may be missing out on a ton of opportunity just from the sake of inaction. And I think that's not what a lot of people realize. It's like inaction comes at a cost as well.
No, yeah, 100%. Yeah, you have to. I mean, you can't wing it. You have to be educated. You have to have a good team. You have to. I wouldn't just go all in without knowing anything. You have to educate yourself. There's no, I guess, schooling per se, right? There's no advanced degree that you can get that's going to ensure your success. Kind of like an advanced healthcare degree. You get that degree, you're most likely going to get a job somewhere. With this, I mean, you could do all the reading and do all the podcasting and learn as much stuff and join a mentorship. It's not going to ensure that you're going to get to where you want to go.
So we talked about this earlier, and you had mentioned, you were talking with other people who are experienced in the industry. It really is a big community. How have you felt that has kind of impacted it versus, when you go through academics, a lot of times it's very much geared towards competition, right? You have to get the best grades. You have to get the best, do the best work, do the best exams, and then when you apply, you have to be one of the top competitors. How has that experience differed compared to this venture into entrepreneurship and into real estate investing?
I think even like, for instance, even people that are, let's say, my competitors in the Houston market, most of them are going to be willing to, give me a helping hand on something. Maybe if I'm unsure in something, or if I want to, run a bit, hey, how did you do this? Or, what are you seeing in this that I'm not seeing? Most of the people, or at least my close contacts, that would be also considered my competitors, right? Because we're offering on the same deals. They're always be willing to help, and I'm always willing to help them. Like, I share a vendor, you share a vendor with me, I share a vendor with you, and so there's not a lot of like hoarding, I guess you can say. I don't know that there's a lot of hoarding in anesthesia, but obviously, like if you're trying to get into a very competitive program and they're going to accept 15 people and there's 300 applicants, there is a lot of competition on that side for sure. Even within like the space, like say, within certain fields competing for scope of practice, right? There's a lot of competition. And, that's one thing that it kind of somewhat turned me off about just the anesthesia world in general, is like, I've never seen, groups of professionals kind of rooting against each other in a sense. And I didn't really like that. That doesn't really resonate well with me. Like, I want you to do great, and I want the next person to do great. And I want you to be pushed to the next level, no matter what role you're in, and I think real estate in general, or at least this space that I'm in, there's always willing to someone to kind of like say, hey, look, you need to level up, you need to push, you need to keep going, not necessarily trying to hold you down.
Absolutely. And, us ourselves personally have had conversations of that sort too. And I really love the camaraderie that comes with being within this space. And you're right, it's absolutely a team sport. And ultimately, if you're not working with, let's say a competitor right now, you never actually know whether the opportunity will present itself in the future where we have an opportunity to work together. Because at this level of investing, there's no way one single person can get it done by themselves. They just can't. And when you take into account that mindset of this is a team sport, this is an abundance mentality, I think everyone will be able to elevate each other to that next level.
Yeah, for sure.
We hold a monthly meetup over here. We started it back in 2020, in August of 2020. It's called Windy City REI, and it started as a group of active real estate investors specific to the Chicagoland market. And you would think, well, everyone here is looking for a property to purchase in this small market, and why would anybody want to share certain things with each other? And the reality is it's completely opposite. In fact, the fact that we can kind of work together as a team and really understand, like, look, these are good trades that I would trust, or this is a good attorney that we can use, this is a good agent that I would use. You really are elevating the entire community of investors wholeheartedly and being able to provide that value to other people. And it's really amazing to see that.
Yeah, no, 100%. You provide value to that. You could call them your competitor or just your colleague in the investing space. You're also providing work for that vendor. So next time you have a job, that vendor's going to remember, oh, Kris, got me this great job that, I made a lot of money and helped me pay my guys. So it's just kind of like this loop. If you give, I think you're always going to receive on the back end.
100%. And yeah, you make a really good point on the various different ways that you can impact other people too. Is like when you purchase this apartment investment, it's not just it's not just money that's going towards investors. Can you kind of touch base on the different ways maybe you feel you can impact other people, maybe that's within the community as well?
Yeah, I mean, an investment like that, you're not only, first the duty is to the passive investors, right? If you're gonna
Hmm.
if you're gonna buy an apartment complex, they're trusting you with their money. They're trusting you that you're going to be involved in every little detail of the deal. Because if you're not, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. But in general, like you want to you're hiring vendors that are going to help you run this property, contractors that are working on the property managers. So I mean, there's a whole space of just support teams, right? It's not just the property. There's and the whole team has to be aligned, and that's the job of the asset management team is to make sure that the whole team is aligned. So there's just a lot of moving pieces and a lot of people impacted by you buying a property in general, and the tenants, the investors, the vendors that are working, and so it's definitely it's a big community within one property for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can completely turn around an entire community just from purchasing one asset alongside your passive investors. And I think a lot of it is because you are purchasing this property knowing that you're going to have to add value to this asset in order to not only provide the returns for your investors, but also to yourself, the business plan. And then ultimately, who gets affected by that? It's the tenants, it's the community. You're improving their community and providing a place for them to live in that they want to live in. And all across the board, it ends up being a very positive experience once everything goes through as planned.
Correct.
So, all right, folks. So we're coming towards the end of today's show, but before we finish, I think it's time for the Freedom Five. These are 5 questions that we ask every guest on our show, starting with the most important question. And that first question is, what is your why? What is the underlying motivation behind everything it is that you do?
I think my why is kind of in the midst of a transition. For forever, my why was, okay, look, I want to make anesthesia my part-time job. I kind of wanted to have where I'm going to work enough to keep my license. If I want to throttle the anesthesia up for some reason, I can throttle it up. If I want to not work for a couple of months, I can not work for a couple of months. So I wanted that control of my time. And time was the biggest factor. Like even just this week, I'm gonna chaperone my son's field trip. Next week, I'm going to be the parent watcher at recess. These are all situations where I'm not saying that I wouldn't have been granted off, but they kind of happened last minute. I have the freedom now to just do those without having to beg someone to take my shift or try to make a schedule switch, late at night and stressing over it. So definitely freedom of time. But I want to kind of clear up this misconception that it's time. It's like a lot of people. We had like a little happy hour going away from me a month out, and the people are like, "Oh, how's retirement?" I would say right now I'm probably working 40 hours a week at least. in this real estate. So it's not necessarily retirement. I just have the flexibility. I can work late at night if I need to do some things. I can work super early in the morning. I can, take a couple hours to go, watch my kid at recess. And so just that flexibility of time, I could potentially go out of town and take calls on my phone or via Zoom and have that flexibility to be somewhere else and not be at the hospital. So that was my biggest why, was to get that time. And now that I have that time, now my biggest why is to not, kind of fall back and okay, I don't want to be in a position where I have to go back full time, right? So you really have to continue pushing and pushing and pushing, because you don't really want to fall back to where you were.
I love that. Second question, what book has had the largest influence on your life?
I would say two books at this point. There's one, it's called The Big Leap, and then another one is called Who Not How. And I read The Big Leap kind of when I was going through like a rough patch with the burnout, probably maybe 3 years ago, and it just kind of talks about like, zone of genius versus zone of comfort, right? And I realized that, going into work every day, it was very comfortable and easy. Like, it was easy until, you had a critical patient, right? But it was just easy. It was very predictable. It was but I was kind of in my zone of comfort. Like I wasn't really pushing myself to get out of that zone of comfort. Versus your zone of genius, you might feel at your best, but you may not know it all. And so that was one book that resonated with me, and it's more of kind of like a mindset type book. And then the other one is Who Not How. It's if you try to go into any type of new venture solo, it's going to be tough sledding, I think. But if you bring other people, try to partner with people that are more experienced than you, try to seek out mentorship and advice from people that are more experienced than you, and take their comments and even criticisms to heart, I think you're going to achieve what you want to achieve much faster if you bring on the right who's to help you out.
Absolutely. I love that. I also read that book earlier this year, and that's provided a really big shift in the way we run things, not understanding that like we don't have to do everything ourselves. In fact, it may be more beneficial long term to find someone who's specializes in whatever it is that you need done, and they'll actually end up doing it better than you do. So that was a huge mindset shift for us as well. It's a great book.
Yeah, for sure.
Number 3, what is the most impactful thing, whether that be a piece of technology or a habit or a person, that has helped you in freeing up your time?
I would say, like, just in general, like in running the business, we use Microsoft Teams a lot. And so I think just like as a system, we really like that system. It's just like all our files are there. We can have group chats there. We can have group almost like messaging there. So our team is in constant communication. If somebody needs something, it's put on our team board. If we need to jump on a quick call, we can jump on. If we need files, they're all there. So just from like an organization standpoint, we have tasks boards there. So everyone can kind of loop into this one central location to, to access things that we need for, number one, the whole business, or maybe even on the property level. Our property level, like our property managers are in that specific chat and then that specific team. And so I think that has definitely kind of helped us run things a little bit more smoothly versus, communicating via email. I mean, it's all fragmented and, okay, I need to find this email from a week ago with this attachment. And that can be, that's just not very good organization when you have so many emails coming in about different things.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the fourth question that we have here, what is the number one piece of advice you would give to anyone looking to achieve more control over their time?
I would say, like, if you're in a job and you're looking to either scale back and replace that with different income or just scale out completely, number one, I mean, you have to be consistent. If you're going to be, say, a real estate investor, or if you want to start another small business or whatever it is that you want to do, you have to be consistent, and so consistent that you change your identity in front of not only your peers, but just you change it for yourself, right? Because most likely the person holding you back the most is yourself, honestly. And so you have to just kind of be relentless and consistent on, okay, if you're going to be a real estate investor, you're a real estate investor. And like, you lead by, I'm not a CRNA anymore, I'm a real estate investor. Or I'm not a doctor anymore, I'm a real estate investor that's also a doctor. So that comes first, right? Because you have to change the identity from maybe it's a client in front of potential future clients, but also really for yourself, right? Once you start owning it and just saying it, you really start to believe it. And you're like, hey, I'm doing this thing. So do that for sure. The identity shift is probably the most, I guess, important aspect of changing whatever it is you want to do.
Absolutely. I love that. And, that goes hand in hand with something we talk about a lot, and that's imposter syndrome. And it's
Yeah.
something that I think a lot of people can resonate with, whether that be in their entrepreneurial ventures, but even in healthcare ventures as well. I mean, that's something that studies have been done, even amongst the healthcare field, where people are in these graduate level programs, they're studying to become physicians, CRNAs, dentists, pharmacists, whatever it may be. And they're stuck into this point. Clearly, they're qualified. They applied, they met all the qualifications, they passed through the interviews. They're one of very few that were selected, and yet they still feel like they don't belong. And I think it's huge how much a mindset shift and being able to take reign over how you think about yourself, how you identify yourself, and how you portray yourself to others, and the effect that that can have on your success overall.
Yeah, and I think find a specific role. I tell people all the time trying to break into like commercial real estate is find something that you're good at and own that role. Like if you think you can raise money, then lead with, hey, I'm going to be a capital raiser. If you're the spreadsheet guy and you're really good with analytics and data and Excel, and you're going to be the underwriter, then you better own that. You better own that role and like become and understand everything there is to know about that specific role, because that's going to be your value add to jump on with maybe a more experienced partner for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely something that we have taken into consideration in our team, and it looks like it's something that you've done too, as you joined the GenWealth Capital Group. So that's huge.
Yes, for sure.
And finally, what is the best way for our listeners to get in contact with you?
Sure. I'm available for contact via my email. It's ryan@genwealthcapital.com. I'm also extremely active on Facebook and LinkedIn. So please feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. Look Ryan Johnson, CRNA, and you will definitely find me.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, brother, lots of great information today. I really liked how you talked about the way you transitioned from your W-2 to a full-time real estate investor, the mindset shift that you had to overcome in order to go ahead and do that, as well as the different ways other people can do what it is that you're doing, or just find ways to free up their time. Tons of great information. And I just wanted to thank you again for being a fantastic guest. And I look forward to keeping in touch.
I appreciate the opportunity, Kris. Definitely let's keep in touch.
Take care, brother.
Thanks.
Now, if you like this show and want to learn more about how we can help you free up your time through passive real estate investments, check out www.freedominvesting.com. Make sure to subscribe to our monthly newsletter and schedule an introductory call with our team. We also have a free 7-day course on what passive real estate investing is and how to get started so that you can start your journey towards earning back more time in your life. To all of our amazing listeners here on the Freedom Investing Podcast, my name is Kris Toribio. Till next time.